picture this right. It is Game 7 of the finals.
Oh, the best kind of game.
Exactly. The tension in the arena is just completely suffocating. The shot goes up, the ball bounces off the rim, and the defensive center lips down the rebound.
Right, and in our world, that is the exact moment the arena absolutely explodes.
Yes. The point guard is screaming for the outlet pass. You have 10 giant humans instantly pivoting, and it is just a chaotic, breathless sprint to the other end of the floor.
Pure adrenaline.
Right. But in the scenario we are unpacking today for this deep dive, that center grabs the rebound, and, well, everyone just stops.
They literally just stop moving.
The referee blows a whistle. The players calmly hand the ball over, and they just walk toward the sidelines. I mean, no fast breaks, no transition, no scrambling back on defense.
It sounds so bizarre to even visualize.
It really does. Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today, we are taking the fundamental physics engine of basketball and completely unplugging it.
We are dissecting a fascinating source document today. It is titled simply The Alternate Timeline Docs.
A great title, honestly.
It really is. And it is basically a masterclass in systems design, just, masquerading as a sports thought experiment.
Right.
The author poses this deceptively simple question. What if basketball had been invented not as a fluid, continuous game of constant motion, but as a rigid, turn-based sport?
Turn-based, like a board game.
Exactly. Like, what if a basketball possession operated exactly like a down in the NFL?
Okay, if you are a basketball purist listening to this right now, you are probably screaming at your device.
Oh, they're throwing their phone.
For sure. You are probably saying that this ruins the beautiful game, right? Because the fluidity is the whole point.
Right, the jazz of it all.
Exactly. But I need you to set aside your allegiance to how things are for a second. Because whether you live and breathe sports or you are just, fascinated by how arbitrary rules shape human behavior, this thought experiment is an absolute labyrinth.
It really is.
Yeah.
It forces you to rethink everything.
We are looking at an entirely different universe here. It alters the biological requirements of the athletes, the psychological profile of the coaches, and just the basic arithmetic of teamwork.
So let's lay the mechanical groundwork first. Because the downstream effects, they're impossible to grasp until we actually understand the sequence of play.
Right. How does a turn actually work?
Well, the source document dictates a very strict, unforgiving order of operations. First, the offensive unit enters the court.
Okay.
Then the defensive unit enters the court. They align themselves. And only then does the referee signal for the possession to begin.
So let's actually unpack that and visualize it. It shifts the entire paradigm. We go from a real-time strategy video game where you are constantly attacking, defending, and managing resources all at the exact same time to a high-stakes game of chess.
That is the perfect analogy. The board resets before every single move.
Right. In our reality, modern basketball is jazz. It relies heavily on improvisation. A play breaks down, somebody tips a pass, and suddenly 3 players are reacting organically to a completely unstructured environment.
Chaos, basically.
Controlled chaos, yeah. But in this alternate timeline, it's classical sheet music. You play the notes exactly as written, or the whole symphony collapses.
And, the elimination of the transition game is really the fulcrum on which this entire alternate reality balances.
How so?
Think about how much of modern offensive efficiency relies on catching the defense out of position.
Oh, a ton of it. Fast break points are huge.
Right. You secure a rebound, you push the pace, and you score because maybe the opposing center was just too tired to sprint back.
Yeah, they are lagging behind at half court.
Exactly. But when you eradicate that, when the defense is allowed to just jog to the sideline, sit down, and send out a fresh unit that gets to set up in a perfect half-court formation, the whole concept of an easy basket completely ceases to exist.
But let me challenge the sheer logistics of that for a second.
Okay.
If the game stops every single time the ball changes hands, every missed shot, every made basket, every turnover, doesn't that just obliterate the pacing?
Well, it changes the pacing for sure.
But if we are doing an NFL-style substitution for every single possession, a standard basketball game is going to take, 4 hours? The fair experience would be absolutely brutal.
I see where you were coming from, but I think you're projecting our current pacing expectations onto a system that is fundamentally designed for deliberation.
Okay, explain that.
Look at the NFL. Fans don't riot during the 40 seconds between plays, right?
That's true, yeah.
That time is filled with anticipation.
Yeah.
You have replay analysis, commentators breaking down the previous play, and you are watching the chess match of the substitutions.
Okay, so the broadcast just adapts to the rhythm.
Exactly. A turn-based basketball game would likely implement a strict play clock. Once a possession ends, both teams have, say, 25 seconds to substitute, huddle, and approach the scorer's table.
So it is rapid fire.
Very. The broadcast wouldn't be dead air at all. It would be highly analytical, focusing heavily on which specialized units are being deployed by the coaches.
That brings up a massive point about control, actually.
Coaches.
Yes. If we stop the game after every 24-second possession, the person standing on the sideline holding the clipboard suddenly becomes the most important person in the building.
100%. The balance of power shifts completely.
Right, because in the current game, coaches talk endlessly about letting players, find their rhythm or playing through mistakes. You can't micromanage a fast break.
No, you just have to trust your guys.
But here, the coach is literally resetting the board every single time down the floor. Doesn't that turn the head coach into a massive micromanager? How do the players even get into a flow?
Well, the source leans heavily into this. It draws a direct parallel to NHL line changes, but dialing the micromanagement up to an absolute extreme.
Like a hockey shift, but for every single possession.
Right. In our timeline, a head coach manages rotations primarily based on fatigue.
Managing minutes.
Yeah. You map out your substitutions before the game. The star plays the first 10 minutes, sits for the next 4 to rest, and then comes back in. It is an energy conservation puzzle.
So you have juice for the fourth quarter.
Exactly. But in a turn-based reality, fatigue is secondary because the work comes in highly concentrated bursts. Coaches are substituting purely based on situational tactics.
So you aren't just sending out your best 5 players overall.
Not really.
You are sending out the specific 5 humans required to solve the exact math problem in front of you on that specific possession.
Precisely. Just imagine the structural shift on the bench itself. You wouldn't just have a head coach anymore.
What do you mean?
You would essentially mandate an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator perfectly mirroring football.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense.
Let's play this out. Say, I am the offensive coordinator. We need a guaranteed 2 points near the basket. It is a critical possession.
Okay, what do you do?
I send out a heavy bruising unit. I'm talking 5 players who weigh 260 pounds each, designed to form a literal physical wedge and bully the defense into the paint.
And as the defensive coordinator, the second I see your heavy unit stand up and walk to the scorer's table, I am reacting.
You have to.
Right. I am certainly not leaving my 180-pound perimeter defenders out there to get completely pulverized by your big guys.
And we get crushed.
So I immediately signal for my own heavy unit. I send in 5 7-foot-tall rim protectors whose sole directive is to build an impenetrable human wall around the basket.
But here is where the psychological warfare really escalates.
Oh, boy.
What if my heavy offensive unit was just a bluff?
Wait, you can fake a substitution?
Why not? I see your massive rim protectors check into the game. I know they are slow. I know they cannot defend the perimeter to save their lives.
Okay.
So, right before the referee signals for play to resume, I pull my heavy unit back to the bench and substitute in 5 lightning-fast perimeter shooters.
Oh, that is wild. It is an absolute game of chicken at the scorer's table.
It really is.
You are constantly trying to bait the opposing coordinator into committing to a defensive package and then instantly punishing them for it.
Right. And it creates a fascinating dilemma regarding the administrative rules of substitution itself.
Yeah, how would the league even regulate that?
Well, the governing body of this ultimate league would have to establish very strict parameters. Does the offense have to declare their personnel first, giving the defense the final counter move?
Or is it a blind reveal, like you both submit your lineups on an iPad at the same time?
Exactly. These administrative rules would dictate the entire flow of the sport. But regardless of the specific mechanism, the burden of strategy shifts dramatically from the instincts of the athlete on the floor to the premeditation of the coaching staff on the sideline.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. If the coaches are actively dictating physical matchups 60 or 70 times a game, that completely changes the definition of what makes someone a good basketball player.
It fundamentally rewrites it.
Right, because if I am the offensive coordinator and I substitute you into the game solely to shoot a three-pointer and then I pull you out the moment the possession ends,
Yeah.
you never actually play a single second of defense.
Not one.
Yeah.
And this is where the source document provides its most provocative insight, I think.
What does it say?
It states, very plainly, that players no longer need to be elite on both ends of the floor. Teams become intensely specialized. The document explicitly references soccer positional discipline.
Soccer positional discipline. That is a massive conceptual hurdle to clear for basketball fans.
It really is.
Because our modern sports culture just absolutely fetishizes the two-way player.
Oh, completely. It is the holy grail.
The ultimate basketball deity in our timeline is someone like Michael Jordan or Kawhi Leonard. Someone who can drop 35 points on your head and then sprint back and completely suffocate your best scorer on the other end.
The ultimate flex.
Right. In the current NBA, if you are a savant at shooting the ball, but you have really slow lateral footwork, you are considered a huge liability.
A target, really.
Exactly. Opposing offenses will actively hunt you, they will force you to switch onto their fastest player, and they will literally play you right off the floor.
But see, the concept of being played off the floor ceases to exist when the floor itself is compartmentalized.
Because you are never out there to be exploited.
Exactly. Look at the soccer analogy provided by the source. We do not expect a world-class goalkeeper to sprint up the pitch and strike a penalty kick.
That would be insane.
Right. And we do not demand that a star forward retreat all the way into their own penalty box to make sliding tackles. They are masters of a very specific, isolated domain.
Let's follow that thread to its origin, though. Because it wouldn't just change the professional leagues, It would fundamentally rewrite human development pipelines from the ground up.
Oh, from childhood, absolutely.
Think about how a 10-year-old athlete trains today. You go to a basketball camp, you run shooting drills for an hour, but then the coach lines you up to practice defensive slides.
Right, taking charges. Taking charges, boxing out for rebounds. You are forced to become a generalist from day one.
But if the professional endpoints of the sport are strictly bifurcated into offense and defense, youth development would naturally mirror that segregation.
You wouldn't waste time on the other half.
Exactly. An adolescent who demonstrates a preternatural gift for shooting mechanics might never be taught a defensive stance in their entire life.
That is so crazy to think about.
There is zero economic incentive to train their defensive reflexes. Instead, they would dedicate their 10,000 hours exclusively to the physics of shooting, ball handling, and offensive spatial awareness.
So their offensive mechanics would be just mathematically pristine.
Flawless.
We would effectively have basketball players who operate exactly like NFL kickers.
That is a brilliant comparison.
Because a kicker doesn't need to know how to shed a block from a 300-pound defensive lineman, right? They just need to swing their leg at a precise angle to send a leather ball through 2 yellow posts.
And they get paid millions to do it.
Exactly. We would see basketball players whose entire multi-million-dollar livelihood depends on coming to the game totally cold, catching a pass, shooting from 30 feet, and immediately walking back to the bench.
And this intense specialization yields an equally radical outcome on the other side of the ball, too. The source document makes a fascinating claim here. It says, defensive specialists become stars again.
I love this because defense is incredibly unglamorous in our current era.
It is a thankless job right now.
It really is. The rules favor the offense, the spacing favors the offense, and let's be honest, the crowd wants to see points. Playing defense today is mostly about survival.
Well, it is about survival because it is incredibly inefficient in a continuous flow system.
Yes, sir.
Let's break down the mechanics of why defense is so frustratingly difficult today. You can play 22 seconds of flawless, absolutely suffocating defense.
Hand in the face, perfect rotation.
Exactly. You force the opponent into a terrible off-balance shot.
Mm-hmm.
But the ball bounces off the rim at a strange angle, the offensive player gets the long rebound, and because your defensive unit is now scrambled and out of position, they get an easy layup.
Right.
Your perfect defense was entirely undone by structural chaos.
Or your defense is undone by sheer lactic acid.
That too.
You just burned massive amounts of energy running a really complex offensive play on the other end, and now you have to instantly transition backward and try to stay in front of a world-class athlete who is attacking you downhill at full speed.
It is physically impossible to maintain. But turn-based mechanics remove both the structural chaos and the aerobic fatigue entirely.
Because they reset.
Yes. The defense is no longer reacting to a chaotic transition. They are dictating the terms of engagement. They walk onto the floor, perfectly rested, having sat on the bench during their team's offensive possession.
Oh, man.
And they get to align themselves in their optimal practiced formation.
I am picturing this defensive unit like an elite bomb squad. Or like an NFL defensive line. They aren't basketball players in the traditional sense we think of. They are a wrecking crew.
A specialized demolition team.
Exactly. Their singular purpose for existing on that hardwood is to ensure the ball does not go through the hoop.
Consider the physical and psychological intimidation of that for a second.
It would be terrifying.
If you are an offensive player in this timeline, you are being guarded by someone who is trying to conserve a little energy for the fourth quarter.
No pacing themselves.
None. You are facing 5 highly specialized, hyper-aggressive athletes who know they only have to exert themselves for 24 seconds.
Wow.
They have a finite window to unleash absolute physiological hell on you, and then they get to go sit down and drink Gatorade.
The schematic possibilities of that they are terrifying. I mean, in our timeline, a coach rarely orders a full court press for an entire game, right?
Almost never.
Because it will physically break their own players. It requires way too much cardiovascular output to sustain.
But in this alternate timeline, an entire roster of defensive specialists could sustain a full court press indefinitely.
Every single possession.
Every single possession. They could execute vicious, trapping double teams the very moment the ball is checked in.
Because they don't have to worry about getting tired.
Right. And without the burden of transition, defensive units would operate with the precision of synchronized swimmers.
Oh, I bet.
They would memorize the offensive team's playbook, recognizing the angles and passing lanes before the ball even leaves the point guard's hands.
We would actually see the cultural elevation of the defender.
You really would.
Think about it. You would see kids buying the jersey of a player who averages exactly 0 points per game.
But is still a superstar.
Yes, because their defensive analytics are so staggering that they are worth $50 million a year. They're essentially human erasers.
It is the economic principle of scarcity. In a system where offensive specialists are scoring with mechanical, almost robotic efficiency, the athlete who possesses the unique physical tools to disrupt that machinery becomes the most valuable asset in the entire ecosystem.
Let me pump the brakes for a second there.
Okay, what do you think?
Because we are talking about these explosive 100% effing bursts of energy. Now, the source document notes that, quote, NBA careers become longer because athletes aren't constantly moving for 48 minutes.
Yes, the longevity argument.
Right. But from a strict biomechanical standpoint, is that actually true?
Why wouldn't it be?
Well, if I sit on a cold folding chair for 5 minutes while the offense works, and then I am suddenly thrust onto the court and asked to immediately sprint and execute a max effort vertical jump, wouldn't I blow out my hamstring immediately?
I see what you mean.
Doesn't the constant stopping and starting actually increase the risk of acute injuries?
That is a phenomenal counterpoint, honestly, and it forces us to re-examine how these athletes would actually train. Okay, correct me.
You are applying the physiology of a continuous flow athlete to a burst athlete.
Explain the difference.
A modern basketball player is conditioned for aerobic endurance. They are marathoners who jump. But an athlete in this alternate timeline would train exactly like an Olympic sprinter or an NFL defensive back.
Oh, okay.
Their bodies would be entirely optimized for anaerobic output. And to your point about the cold folding chair, they wouldn't just sit cold on the bench.
What would they do?
The sideline would be completely reimagined. It would be equipped with stationary bikes, heating pads, and dynamic stretching areas to maintain muscle temperature while the other unit plays.
Oh, so they are constantly staying warm, but they're avoiding the slow, grinding wear and tear of running up and down.
Exactly. The source argues that longevity increases because we are eliminating compounding fatigue.
Compounding fatigue.
Right. Look at the injury data in our current timeline. A massive percentage of non-contact injuries, I am talking to torn ACLs, the ruptured Achilles tendons, they do not happen in the first quarter. That's a good point. They happen in the fourth.
They happen late in the game or late in the season when the athlete is utterly exhausted. The muscles surrounding the joint become fatigued, they fail to absorb the shock of a hard landing, and the connective tissue just snaps.
Wow. So the continuous pounding on the hardwood is what degrades the cartilage. The marathon running up and down the court is what actually shortens the career.
By having the required running distance and entirely excising the unpredictable, chaotic sprints of transition defense, the chronic physical strain is radically reduced.
You are basically replacing an 82-game marathon with a season of highly structured, interval-based combat.
That is a great way to phrase it.
Yeah.
And that dramatically alters the aging curve for these athletes.
Oh, it has to. Because in the modern game, when an athlete loses even a fraction of a step in their early 30s, they become a target.
A massive liability.
Right. You can be a genius-level offensive player, but if you can't hustle back on defense, the coach has to bench you.
But in this timeline, when raw foot speed is decoupled from the necessity to play defense, aging players can rely almost entirely on their accumulated muscle memory and cognitive processing.
Their basketball IQ.
Exactly. We see this with quarterbacks in football all the time.
Yeah.
Tom Brady played at an elite level into his mid-40s.
Right, because nobody asked him to play linebacker.
Exactly. His position was largely shielded from high-velocity impacts, and his immense value was derived from his ability to read defenses and deliver the ball accurately.
Oh, man. We would have the Tom Brady of the pick and roll.
We really would.
You could have a 40-year-old point guard who moves at literally half the speed of the rookies. But his spatial awareness and his shooting touch are so flawless that he is still the most lethal offensive weapon in the entire league.
Yes. You just sub him in, let him dissect the defense for 20 seconds, and pull him right back out.
You'd have these absolute grandmasters of the game extending their careers by a decade.
The institutional knowledge retained within the league would just be staggering. Teams would construct highly specific, niche roles for these veterans.
Like closing pitchers in baseball.
Exactly. A coach would say, we need a guaranteed three-pointer out of a baseline out-of-bounds play. Send in the 42-year-old specialist.
And the crowd would lose their minds when he walks onto the floor.
It becomes a completely different theatrical experience for the fans.
It really does. Treating a possession like a discrete, manageable event doesn't just change the rules. It rewrites roster construction, it reinvents defensive architecture, and it mathematically extends the human lifespan of a professional career.
It creates a reality that feels entirely alien to us, yet it is perfectly internally consistent.
Which is the hallmark of a great thought experiment.
It is, and that leads to the final, really piercing observation for the source document.
Hit me with it.
The author concludes the entire piece by saying, quote, "If basketball had started this way from the beginning, we'd probably think modern basketball is the weird version."
Wow, that really sits with you.
Doesn't it?
Because we just accept continuous flow as the default. Over a century ago, a guy named James Naismith nailed some peach baskets to a balcony and basically just let people run around.
Right, and we just took that chaotic parameter for granted ever since.
We assume our current system is the natural order of things.
But if the foundational rule had involved a whistle and a complete reset after every single shot, our entire scoring culture would reflect that deliberation.
Oh, entirely. We would look at a tape of our modern continuous flow NBA and we would view it as barbaric.
We would ask, why are they running so much? It is disorganized chaos.
Right. We would say, why are they forcing their elite million-dollar shooters to exhaust themselves playing defense against a fast break?
We would view it as an incredibly primitive, inefficient way to organize human talent.
It's a profound lesson in systems design, honestly. It proves that what we consider a talent or a liability is not an absolute truth.
Not at all.
It is entirely dictated by the constraints of the system you happen to be placed in. You change the system, and the liability suddenly becomes a superpower.
It forces us to question the invisible boundaries in every single system we participate in, sporting or otherwise.
This has been an absolute trip. Thank you for taking this mental leap with us, everyone, and diving deep into this alternate reality.
It's the kind of exploration that makes you look at every single game and really every single rule book a little bit differently.
It completely challenges the very bedrock of how we perceive athletic competition.
It certainly challenged mine.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final dilemma to ponder on your own.
Oh, a parting thought.
Yes. We've spent this entire time talking about how a turn-based system creates two completely different games happening on the exact same court.
Right. The offensive game and the defensive game.
If the offensive unit and the defensive unit are totally segregated and they are populated by entirely different sets of human beings, how do we ever calculate the ultimate MVP of the league? Oh, wow. That is an almost unanswerable question.
Right. Do you reward the offensive specialist, the player who mathematically guarantees you score points every single time they touch the ball?
Or do you reward the defensive anchor?
Exactly. The human eraser who mathematically guarantees the opponent scores absolutely nothing.
When the two sides never actually play against each other.
When the offensive MVP never once has to face the defensive MVP in a direct one-on-one matchup on the same court, who truly holds the most value?
I love that.
Something to chew on the next time you see a player sprinting back on a fast break. Until next time.